y'all. I'm Lady River, and welcome to Gaia Unveiled, the podcast on science for witches and pagans. So we talked a bit the past couple episodes about where all these dang species came from. The development of sexual reproduction had a lot to do with creating a variety of life, but death played more of a role than we really addressed. And here I am specifically talking about consumers, not the capitalist kind, the biological kind, creatures that eat other creatures. About 3.5 billion years ago, life was peaceful. Plants weren't a thing yet, and definitely not animals. Most things weren't even things yet. All life was just single cells, or even not quite cells, processing energy from the chemicals absorbed out of the primordial soup. It was just oceans and oceans of the same kind of life. Genes mutated, but that's a rare occurrence, so change was slow. It was peaceful and boring. Once photosynthesis came to be, oxygen started to flood the atmosphere, and living things started developing more kinds of thingness. This was bad news for the things that already existed. They experienced a thingpocalypse. But it was good news for the diversity of new species. Oxygen makes the organic production of energy more efficient, so things that had mutations that required greater energy, like organizing multiple cells into a single creature, or having organs and muscles and stuff, now had the resources to survive and thrive. Sexual reproduction is one of those high-resource processes, and with that door opened, the accident of meiosis allowed populations to vary much more quickly, increasing the diversity of species. Plants came to be. Animals came to be, though they were primitive. At some point, all this sped-up new creation reached a critical mass, the Cambrian explosion. This was the largest scale change in the history of life on Earth, to the extent that the 7/8 of Earth's history that came before it is called the pre-Cambrian eon. For a long time, we thought there was no life before the Cambrian period. The fossils are so small or so rare. Several factors seem to have contributed to this explosion of life forms, and the jury's still out on what was the most important. Increased oxygen was a factor, and there was also an extinction event at the end of the pre-Cambrian period, opening up many new niches or ways of living, in which new species could find safety and sustenance. But a major factor was the development of predation. As a votary of Herne the Hunter, I must share. Creatures that were sedentary and squishy became food. Creatures that had mutated to make things like protective shells were safe and proliferated, until predators figured out how to eat them. So the new fashion became harder shells, or spines, until that didn't work as well anymore, and so on. This is called the evolutionary arms race, and has been a significant driver of the variation of species ever since. Side note, it also meant more hard parts that leave fossils behind. It's part of why we have such big brains, but that's another topic. Predators and prey kept improving their offensive and defensive tactics. If prey could burrow underground, or taste bad, or excrete poison, or live farther out in the ocean, or farther in towards inland, or flee faster, or hide better, they survived. And discovering new niches where already established species couldn't survive was a great way to ensure enough space for even more species to develop and survive. Predators likewise had to develop new ways to overcome these obstacles. And you'll remember, offspring of survivors could also innovate in record speed due to the genetic deck shuffling of sexual reproduction. Sex partnered with death to make possible the largest increase in variety in the oceans before or since. There's another key way in which predation led to innovation and variety on the most fundamental level. Up until about 2.75 billion years ago, cells were very simple, and each was a complete individual. Creatures had an inside and an outside, and clumps of DNA floating randomly around in there, and that was basically it, just like bacteria today. Sometimes one would engulf another to absorb its nutrients or spare genes. The theory is that at some point, the engulfed organism was able to survive intact, and work together with the engulfing organism to their mutual benefit. This is why, for example, the energy-making parts of both plant and animal cells have their own distinct DNA. This process of engulfing led to increased complexity in so-called true cells that contain tiny analogs of organs and are capable of themselves working together to make multi-celled creatures of unprecedented complexity and diversity. This contrast between the simpler prokaryotes and the complex eukaryotes is the prime and primal division of types of life on Earth. If you're a total nerd who wants a laugh, go look up those etymologies. Devouring predator and resilient prey. Life in the face of death, rising above to create entirely new orders of life enveloping a planet. Types of life that are capable of so much more than even the largest single protocell can accomplish on its own. Just like people and cultures, we can accomplish more when we don't have to work alone. Planetary scale, cellular scale, human scale. Panphage, the all-devourer, is also Pangenitor, the all-begetter. Death eternally in service to life. Thanks for joining me on Gaia Unveiled. Opening and closing themes are Magic Trance by Julius H. and Magic Event by Christian Bodie, respectively. Both are courtesy of Pixabay. In the next episode, we're going to move a little more into chemistry than biology. Stick with me to find out about a tiny circle going on in each of your cells right now, and what you, yes you, have in common with fungi. See ya in episode 6. Keep reasoning, and blessed be. Hey again, real quick thing. If you liked this podcast, dropping a review in your podcast app is a great way to support the show and makes you 16% cooler than you already are. Or you can come geek out with us on the Gaia Unveiled Facebook page, or support the show at patreon.com/Gaia_Unveiled. If you can spare a few bucks a month, you get some nifty rewards, and I get a personal connection with you that helps me make the show even better. You can also find me on Twitter at LadyRiver8 or email me at GaiaUnveiled@gmail.com. You can find the show wherever you like to listen to podcasts, and even on YouTube with transcripts. See you soon, and thanks.